without further ado, I would love to invite Fauzuddeen to share his story and his impact through ZamTracka that he is striving to achieve in a new democracy. Nigeria has gained independence only in 1999, so the youngest democracy here on this event today. Fauzuddeen, would you like to share your screen and come on stage?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, my name is Fauzuddeen Mahmud, and I am from Nigeria. Um, uh, I love the introduction that Odeta made, that we are the youngest democracy. Yeah, we just celebrated, I think, 2 decades of unbridled democracy, right, from 1999 to date. So, I'm from Nigeria, and in Nigeria, from a state in the northwestern part of the country called Zamfara State. Actually, the poorest region in the country. Poverty rate is at a staggering 78%. So that means that amongst like each 100 people, 78% of among every 100 people, 78 out of them live below the poverty line. In a recent report that was published by One Africa, they actually did an analysis of the primary healthcare service delivery in states, in the 36 states in the country. And, the state I am from actually came last. And also unemployment rate is at, 44%. So why am I saying this? I'm bringing all these figures, just so that I can give you like a socioeconomic context of the place that I come from. So now all these problems are actually symptoms to a particular issue with governance and with democracy. That means something is actually wrong with the issue of governance, the system of governance, weak institutions that have not been able to deliver on the public good. So now all these I grew up in this kind of environment where all these socioeconomic realities are obtained. So now the question is, okay, who is now responsible to address these problems? Who's now going to work on these issues? Because definitely someone needs to address these issues. If not, the whole system will implode, and then that will be catastrophic, for democracy. And I said to myself, okay, what is the way forward? How can we actually make sure that we open up democracy, we link people with governance and with government, so that that interaction will lead to improved service delivery for virtually everybody. So it is this particular line of thought that actually gave birth to what we do at ZamTracka. So if I may just give you a brief of that. ZamTracka is a civic-tech platform that leverages on data and technology to be able to empower people with the basic information they need, specifically around fiscal issues, fiscal data that they need to be able to get engaged. It is our belief that uh, 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 apart from the Constitution, the second most important public document is, the fiscal budget, because it gives you like the detailed information on the focus of government for that particular fiscal year. And it's a very, very viable tool for people to get engaged and people to ask all the right questions as to the direction of government, because what is entailed in the fiscal data and the fiscal document directly and indirectly affects, them. So we leverage on data, but then you need to create you need to also source out the data. So how do we now source out data? In a particular environment where there's no transparency, no fiscal transparency, no accountability, and all these negative socio-economic realities are obtained, then definitely the first building block towards building a more accountable democracy is for you to start with entrenching transparency. So back then in 2019 stroke 2020, we launched the open budget campaign, which is like a fiscal transparency campaign to ensure that the government actually publishes its fiscal data online. And this particular engagement was really, really, really positive, and it led to the government actually subscribing to the OGP local, the Open Government Partnership. And through with this success that we were able to get, we were able to ensure that on an annual basis, all fiscal data, including the fiscal budget performance reports, they are all published online. But then that is one part of the problem, because okay, if you have it online and then you have a society that is actually poor, more than 80% of the population actually live in rural and semi-urban areas, and literacy rate is at 19%. So now who's there to really understand that fiscal data, if not for the privileged few? So now we need to actually make sure that, okay, the opportunity that we have, that the government actually is now publishing the fiscal data, we now need to ensure that we intersect people with that bit of information. And in order for us to bridge that challenge of, lack of literacy and what have you, and that's where technology actually comes in. So we use technology using tech tools to break down that fiscal data into meaningful bits of, interactive information using the local language, because it's very, very essential in a place where literacy rate is so poor. You don't get people, speaking English that much. So we adopted the local language and also, intersected it with technology, just such that through that, um, people are much, much more informed on, okay, how much is the government getting, how much is it spending, on what is the government spending, what's, the debt service, and also what's the overall debt burden of the state, and what have you. Data such as that, really goes a long way in giving people the opportunity to actually ask all the right questions. So now through this, how do we then strengthen democracy through this? For us, democracy is all about people. Governance has to translate to, improving socioeconomic profiles of people, most especially people that are marginalized. And that is why empowering people with these kind of critical data is very, very vital. So we do what we do so that we can intersect people with government. We can bridge that divide between people and government, and through that we are actually improving the virtues of democracy, which are transparency, accountability, and economic prosperity. And in order for us to augment this particular aspect, we actually created a separate project, or let me say a separate unit called the PTU. And this PTU is like the project tracking component of our work, such that, okay, we give people information on, okay, this is what the government is spending, these are the projects that, are on the menu for the particular year. But then who knows whether those projects are implemented or not? If they're implemented, what's the quality of implementation? Are they abandoned? And then what about sustainability? Who then take care of the project, after, they're implemented. So now it is the work of this internal unit to, go in real time, go to the field, map out locations, locate those project sites, and also get critical data in terms of, project completion rates, the pace that the work is, currently been going, the quality of the work that's been done, and also to make analysis on, okay, is the amount that's been budgeted or that's been expended for this particular project commensurate with the quality of work that's on ground. There were instances where 200 million naira or thereabout, will be budgeted to build a particular school, a particular bridge. But when you go there and you see the quality of work, you wouldn't even think that 10 million naira is spent on that particular project. So all these, we report on them, we track, we monitor those projects, and we use them as another viable tool to keep people engaged, to keep communities informed. And wherever we go, wherever community that we go to track a particular project, we make sure that, we do an in-house sensitization with the community leadership, including the district heads, the local cleric, youth groups, representative of market women, representative of youth, representative of people with disability, so that we first inform them, okay, hey, this is what we are coming here to do. This is why it's important for you to actually engage with, the person who nominated this particular project, or you engage with the ministry directly to ensure that the project is done, or you are engaged in the nomination process in the first place. Most of the times people complain, the communities complain that, okay, people just come and start construction without the community even knowing, okay, this is what's to be constructed. And we believe that that's a very, very critical component, because you need to engage citizens first, know what they need in that particular community, because that will help them in actually owning up the project and ensuring its sustainability. So through these mechanisms, we're empowering people to get engaged with the government, and the more they get engaged, the more the institutions are much more responsive towards providing improved service delivery for all. And why we're so different, if I may say, is the fact that we focus on what happens on at the subnational level, because we believe that democracy is local, government is it's local, and the much more people at the grassroots level that are able to empower to intersect with their local governments, the much more stronger the institutions are from the bottom up. So what really happens at the federal level, it's not really what concerns it, but what really happens at the subnational level, at the states level, that is where we are currently targeting. And it's a huge vacuum that we're filling, because we have a lot of big name organizations that they only focus on what happens, at the federal level. But if you go down to the state level, they have no presence, they're not empowering anybody, so we're here, we're there to like bridge this particular divide. So basically that is what ZamTracka is all about. And in the run up to the 2023 general election, we just had a general election in 2023. And we launched Voter. So Voter is like this election monitoring tool and voter sensitization platform, where we empower voters with the right electoral data or information on how to be able to make informed decisions, and also to be able to track these projects, to track the votes in real time. So it's the first of its kind in the whole country, because it is providing a narrow focused approach to the issue of election monitoring at the states level. When you cover the whole country, you publish a report, there are critical data, critical information, critical events that happen at the subnational level that are not being captured, and that is where we are currently focusing those critical information that's happening that don't get really elevated to the national level. That's what we're trying to amplify. So through these activities and projects, we're striving to improve democracy by empowering people, by engaging more people and intersecting them with their government. So I think I'm going to drop my screen for if anyone wants to really share their own insights, or if they want to get to know much more about what we do.
So
Thank you.
thanks a lot, Fauzuddeen. It's like such an incredible story and example of actually bridging online data and citizen participation to actually make a change where there is potentially no infrastructure. So you're just creating it and actually like involving people in doing so. So I would invite everybody to actually switch on their cameras, Yava, Gabriela, Fauzuddeen, for a brief 20-minute-ish discussion, because I think that, like I heard a lot: poverty, literacy rate, corruption, open data, trailblazer politicians, transparency, and accountability have been mentioned quite a few times by all of you. And you all operate non-governmental institutions, but you are, in an essence, making sure that the government is accountable for its actions through inviting it and actually pushing it almost to open the data and to actually become more transparent. Can you share the biggest challenges and your specific government's, I don't know, like how does the government view you? Like, you know, your efforts and your actions. Are they friendly and opening? Are they resistant? Can you share a bit of a light on that regard? And maybe Fauzuddeen, let's start with you because you're the youngest democracy, so you probably get like, you know, a different end of a stick here.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you. I think it's a very interesting question. When you're trying to disrupt the status quo, definitely you should plan for ripple effect. A lot of things are bound to happen. Rejection. A lot of people will label you different kind of names. And the government, might even clamp down on what you do. And yeah, we actually experienced that in the early days of our work, not from the government directly, but from their own agents or from their own proponents. But going forward, I think our core values actually helped us to weather the storm, in such a way that we're able to create this synergy, this cooperation with government, with relevant bodies, so that together they could see that okay, we're trying to do something different, even though they don't like it. But then the people are behind us because we've been able to create this base through that campaign that we launched, the Open Budget campaign. So we're able to mobilize a lot of people, and then it became very, very difficult for the government line to say, okay, we're just going to shut these people down. We've gathered that momentum and use that momentum to as a pedestal to engage with the system. So that we on one hand we are with the people, and on the other hand we're there trying to make sure that we engage relevant stakeholders to address the system. So if you marry the two together, the effect becomes much more pronounced. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So employing people and kind of not leaving any other way, really. That's the
Yeah,
way
yeah,
forward in Nigeria. Fauzuddin, if I can come back to you, because you started saying that, like your people-driven impact on politicians. Are you
yeah.
seeing any trailblazer politicians that are starting to open up and facilitate and help? Is there also in Nigeria and in your region those ones that will help you to carry the flag and continue opening the data to more citizens?
Yeah. I wish we can carry this lobbying as a strategy, but in the context of our own political environment, I mean lobbying would just it's just like a huge like downer, because you lose appeal to the other party. So you just need to like stay central. So lobbying is not part of oh, our own kind of political space. But then, going back to our work, prior to us starting work on, following projects and tracking of public projects, lawmakers do not even actually engage their citizens on, okay, I'm going to nominate a project for you. But citizens will just see project, construction commences, and then, at the end of the day, that project will become abandoned because the community wasn't engaged, so nobody is going to like take ownership for sustainability purposes. But then after we've done the tracking for like 4 years, now lawmakers are beginning to do town halls. Are beginning to do town halls before actually nominating the project, so they're engaging people in the nomination processes at first, and it's all down to the outcome of the reports that we've been publishing based on okay number of projects in so constituencies that weren't completed, that were abandoned, because of lack of sustainability mechanism, or projects that were not even executed at all. So now these lawmakers are trying to, engage more with their citizens, engaging them in both the nomination as well as the execution process. So they will engage them, okay, hey, what are your needs? Let's discuss this problem together. And then they'll identify a particular project. And then when it's time for implementation, they'll like do one mini ceremony like that, like an execution ceremony where the district head will be there, the community leaders will be there, and then the contractor too as well. Representatives with contractor will be there as well. Okay, we are going to start so project in your community, and we're here to notify so critical stakeholders so that you know what we are doing. And then, at the end of the day, together we make sure that the projects are sustainable. So we are seeing this particular change in trend, whereas before we opened up that segment, they just did what they wanted because they knew people really didn't know. So they can either nominate project and then connive to siphon the funds without even implementing the project because people didn't know. So if you don't know anything, you're not going to ask something. But when we started, now people are talking about it. If projects are not even are not even completed, if you see the kind of engagement that we have on our site and on social media, people using our own data that, hey, we're aware that 50% of funding has been released for, the implementation of these project. Our lawmaker is yet to commence. What's wrong with you? So all those kind of conversations are really, really, picking up. So I think going forward, this if this trend is sustainable, we're definitely going to see, a new crop of lawmakers, coming up and engaging more with their citizens and also supporting this. So what we intend to do in the long run is for us to like create this co-create this module that will guide nomination of constituency projects or capital projects by lawmakers in a particular year. So that model will like be what would I say, the dictionary or the manual that all the lawmakers are now going to use when they are going to nominate the project. It's not going to happen now, but in the long run, we want to co-create this, with them so that we have one particular guide for project nomination as well as project completion so that, there is a particular guide, nationwide guide that will guide these events.
I think there is a lot to learn for a lot of countries from you guys and how you are bridging together like politicians and citizens for project completion. And Fauzuddeen, for you to end it, of course, you said, like you already mentioned, what's the biggest milestone for you for ZamTracka platform. But what about Nigeria's democracy? Do you have any insight that you would like to share?
Yes, I think even though our democracy is quite nascent, but there are a lot of actors, both public and private, that are working towards ensuring that the basic tenets of democracy, accountability, and transparency are being upheld. And I think going forward, it's really going to be a game changer where you get a lot of people, intersected with government. We are 230 million people right now, but if you look at 113 million of them live in poverty. So that really tells you that there's still a lot of work to do in, marrying the two together. And it is the little work of initiatives like us, like others, that will definitely be the game-changing component for our democracy, and we are ready for the work. Yeah.
That is super motivating and pleasant to hear, because I think that all of your work really contributes. And of course, like underlying enabler is digital technology. We wouldn't be here today talking about open data and government transparency if it wasn't for the digital technologies. That actually, like, even somehow today talking to you guys, I was thinking like, I'm sitting in my room in Lithuania and I am getting a window into Nigeria, South Africa, and a completely different place in Lithuania, which is absolutely amazing, which bridges citizens, politicians, opens up possibilities for us to come together to become more transparent and more inclusive in decision-making process. And the state of the world where we are right now, there is no other way. There is no other way for people to be aside. Then we have so much access to information, and for politicians to not be inclusive for this. So I really thank you a lot for joining us today, for doing the amazing work that you're doing, for winning WSA competition. And I really hope that I will meet you around in WSA events or just in different forums. And I also really hope that all of you will get connected and can share experiences and learn from each other as well. Just like we invite everybody on YouTube, all the WSA community or any other listener to get in touch. If you found something relevant, if you want to learn more, if you want to stay engaged, please do so. We're all about inclusivity and opening up the knowledge so that everybody can benefit. So without keeping you away from your evenings, all of us are in a very similar time zone, weirdly. I really want to thank you, and I hope I will see you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.